Right on the red part. There you go. There it goes. Hey.
Press the button.
Here we are set up at the 30th Annual Toy Train Expo in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. This is a Saturday-Sunday affair of displays of model trains. We're set up in one of the smaller rear rooms, and there's other rooms with similar displays, bigger rooms with bigger displays also. Here's our stated purpose of this display. It says this display demonstrates using a DCC programmable model train controller to operate 2 conventional locos and 1 DCC loco. This setup is basically the same thing as in parts 1 and 2, and it was all explained in part 1 and 2 how we use an NCE mini panel and relays to operate these 2 conventional Williams Chuggington locos, but for this display we've also added a point-to-point DCC layout in the center. That loco is a DCC loco. You can see it's got the headlight and the flashing strobe even though it's not moving. This is basically the same setup as we had in parts 1 2, except we had to make it a foot shorter to fit the shorter table length. Now we'll go over and push the start button. So our 2 conventional locomotives will make 2 laps each. There's the first lap of the red one. There's the second lap. Now the inside loop will start, and these 2 diesels are Bachmann Chuggingtons. They're conventional locomotives. They have no DCC decoders. We're just running them off of AC power. We're controlling relays to start and stop them, same as in parts 1 and 2. Now in the center we've got a DCC loco. That's an MTH Proto 3 diesel running in DCC mode, and you can see that will make a point-to-point cycle. It's come up toward us and stop. Now it'll go back and stop, and you can see the status light on the upper right of the control panel is red right about there, and that just changed to green. So the thing is completed a cycle. What we call the repeat switch is open, so it won't repeat. So it'll sit there until somebody pushes the start button again, then it'll repeat itself all over. I just pushed the start button, so it's starting a second cycle, but it'll just keep repeating what we saw it doing. We'll take a closer look at this point-to-point system. We keep the diesel parked down at the far end where it's sitting now, And then right up here where this piece of white tape and the arrow is shown, there's a reed switch in the track, and there's a magnet on the bottom of that gondola. So the logic is we run the train forward until the magnet on the gondola goes over the reed switch. That tells the mini panel the train's at this end. We send a stop command, wait 4 seconds, and we send a speed 2 reverse command to back it up to where you see it now, and we have no detector at the far end, that we just run it 8 seconds for 8 seconds, and that parks it about where you see it parked now. It runs fairly consistently when you use an 8-second time delay. So basically, we're using the reed switch on this end to know where it is when it gets to this end, and we use time delay going the other direction. That way we can use only one detector. And you see that piece of white tape in the track here. This is about where it parks with 8 seconds. The previous tape is where it parked with 7-second delay. So if 7 seconds gets it to here, 8 seconds gets it back to here. We don't want to run it back to where it hits the bumper, because it pulls enough current, it'll overload the power cab. And I should mention, NCE says not to use a power cab for O gauge, so I'm doing what they tell you not to do, but I found it running these at such a slow speed step 2 in this case, they pull less than an amp, and the power cab is rated for 2 amps. So for this application, it works. And here's this cable right here. There's a 4-wire RGB cable coming in here. This thing here, this is what we use to connect up the point-to-point. The red and blue wires are providing power to this track, and in the green and the black, they go to the over to the reed switch. So we can run this point-to-point just by hooking up this cable. And the green wire goes over to input 16 on the mini panel, and in the red and the blue hook up to the power track connections on the control board here, and the black wire is the ground. And it would be better and we should have said this in part 1 and 2, this would be a better display if we had all 3 diesels running on DCC. That way these engines would have light and sound when they're parked, plus gradual acceleration and deacceleration. But basically this display just shows how you can use a DCC mini panel, that is to say a DCC programmable model train controller to control both conventional engines and DCC engines on the same layout. I mentioned earlier that this magnet that's down in the track was actuated, I mentioned earlier that this reed switch that was down in the track is actuated by a magnet on the bottom of the gondola. We can take a look at that here. If I flip this upside down, you can see there's a round magnet hot glued to the bottom of this gondola, and that's what closes a reed switch, which grounds input 16 on the mini panel, which tells it that the point-to-point train is at the end of its track.